Hi guys. Okay, today we're going to talk about how to fill out our argument outline. Um, so we are writing an essay that is an argument essay on violent video games. So the prompt is, are violent video games harmful to teens? So you want to make sure that we're focusing on this area of teenagers. So you want to make sure that you don't include a bunch of evidence about children or have text evidence. It's like, oh, small children shouldn't do this because we're really focusing on that teenage years, which is like 13 to, 19. And we want to know if it has a negative impact on them. So you guys have already done some research. We filled out a T-chart with text evidence, both for and against. And you're going to need that. You're allowed to decide which side you're taking, which position. Yes, they are harmful to teens, or no, they are not. And then you have to defend that position using some of those reasons in that text evidence that we put in that T-chart. Okay, so everywhere in this outline, you are going to, it's a Google Doc, so you're just going to type right in here. So everywhere that there is a dash, you are going to have to put text in there. I prefer you to make your font like a 12 font, and then you could maybe even change the color of your text so I can see your answers. They might be a little more clear. But the first question, there's 4 parts. There's the introduction, there's the development of your argument, then there's the counterclaim, and then there's the conclusion. So what this is going to actually end up totaling is 6 paragraphs. So the first paragraph is your introduction. First off, you want to know how you're going to hook your reader. You may not use a question to the reader. I do not want, you guys are in 8th grade, I do not want to, do you know about violent video games? Or do you think violent video games are harmful to teens? Nope, nope, nope. I need you to grab the reader's attention, just like that article that we looked at where it started out listing, it said blood and gore, sexual content, just all these statements about things that, would kind of be appalling. And then you talk about, these are just some of the phrases used to describe Grand Theft Auto and the content, So like you need to find a way that's really going to hook your reader. Why is this relevant? Then you're going to give the reader background information. It says, pretend your audience does not know about violent video games. I'm going to actually make that a sentence. What background information do you need to give them about the topic? You can just notice in the directions, it says use complete sentences unless it says otherwise. Well, right here on the second part, it says otherwise. It says just notes or bullet points. So this could be things like you need to tell people like what percentage of teenagers play violent video games. Maybe give me some information about how many violent video games are sold every year in the US. Like, you need the reader to understand that it's prevalent. You need to let them know that, parents are concerned that it has negative effects on teens. That there are some people that say that there don't, like kind of introduce the debate that's going on. And then your very last sentence, the last sentence of your introduction, you are going to state your position and preview your 3 reasons that you plan, to use to support your argument. So for example, and you want to state it like it's fact. Don't say I think or I believe. State it as it's fact. Violent video games are not harmful to teens because they allow for healthy competition, comma, that's reason number 1. Social interaction with friends, comma, that's reason number 2. And the Supreme Court ruled that these games do not cause aggression. That's reason number 3. So I stated my claim and I previewed my 3 reasons, just in a short list. I usually have you bold or underline your thesis statement because everything in your argument, this is how now healthy competition is going to be your first reason. Social interaction with friends is your second reason. And then the Supreme Court case is going to be your third reason of your body paragraphs. Okay, so you're going to have body paragraph 2, 3, and 4 right there. And you need to put them in that order. So now we move on to the body paragraphs. This should be probably 3 to 4 sentences. 4 sentences probably minimum for your introduction. Your body paragraph, you're going to state your first reason. So you're going to come back to, if you were using this as your essay, that it allows for healthy competition. You could just talk about, describe some of, maybe if you're arguing that they're not harmful, take your first reason, describe, what kind of teamwork it would involve, things like that, and how it creates something for kids to do with friends. You could even bring in COVID, and actually that's the second reason. You could talk about the competition and how competition is good for kids, how it motivates them to do better. So you would give your first reason about how it's healthy competition. Then you give me some text evidence. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can put text evidence in your body paragraph. You can introduce the title and the author of the article first. So like, here's an example of introducing the author and the title beforehand, before you use your quote. According to the article published in US Today, titled Study Confirms Link Between Violent Video Games and Physical Aggression, author Mike Snyder states, and then I pasted the quote. You need to have it, remember, if you're going to cite something, it needs to be word for word, and you use quotation marks. That's signaling to the reader, you did not write this. Another way, if you just said, like if this has a pretty good transition into itself, you could just embed the quote in the middle of your paragraph. So you've given your reasoning, and then you just want to insert the text quote, and you put, while there's not research suggesting violent video games lead to criminal behavior, Hull's previous research suggests, and you want to put this just in the middle of your paragraph. You use quotation marks, and then don't put a period here. Put the author's last name or the title of the article, and then the period comes after. So you can do it either way. You can introduce, you don't have to do this right here where you put the author's last name or the title at the end if you've introduced the title and the author beforehand in your text, in your explanation, okay? So you're going to put your text evidence, you're going to color the font red so that I can see that you have text evidence in each body paragraph. And then you're going to elaborate on how this evidence supports your argument. So let's say this was your text evidence, and you were saying that it doesn't just cause criminal, it doesn't cause criminal behavior, but it leads to these riskier behaviors. So, when you elaborate, you might go into detail about, like, it's not worth it if it's going to give teens ideas such as that it's okay or it's cool to be reckless and drive crazy, or to binge drink, or that smoking even appears to be appealing. You're just going to really like drive home on just like how toxic this is if you were using this text evidence. So these are just ideas. These are examples. Obviously, this text evidence does not go with this example thesis statement, because this one's arguing against that it's okay, that it's not harmful. And then this one's arguing that it is harmful. I'm just giving you some examples of if this were your piece of text evidence. Okay, so, and how you would elaborate on that piece of text evidence. So then you'd move into your second reason, which would be the second claim that you have in your thesis statement. You're going to, in black, tell me your reasoning, why you think that, for or against, like why this reason supports it. You're going to give your text quote in red, and then you're going to give your elaboration in blue. You can use transitions like this proves that, or this evidence shows. Those are always good transitions into elaboration where you really kind of connect it back to your thesis statement. Here's your third reason: black font, text quote, red font, elaboration, blue font, use transitions. And then we come to the counterclaim part. This is what's hard for some kids, is that you're going to take, so let's say you're arguing against violent video games, that they are harmful for teens, that kids should not be allowed to play them. You're going to take the argument of the other side, which would be that they're not harmful to teens, and you're going to tell how that claim falls short. What are they not considering? What is a better way of thinking? How have you proven this counterclaim wrong? So maybe one of the arguments that the other side has, if you're arguing that violent video games are bad for kids or harmful, one of the arguments that the other side has is that there wasn't enough evidence. I know. That crime rates have gone down while video game sales, teen crime rates, youth crime rates have gone down while violent video game sales have gone up. So if you're going to counterclaim, you would say something along the lines of, while the opposing side might say that there's no correlation between teen crime rates and violent video game sales, I would like to argue that um, you could say something along the lines of, just because kids aren't engaging in criminal behavior doesn't mean that the violent video games are not negatively impacting them. They still could be, trying things such as smoking and alcohol, or being influenced by watching the mistreatment of women. They could just be becoming, numb to violence and desensitized and not think of it as a serious thing. So you would just talk about how a better way of thinking would be, let's protect our kids from these images. Like, why would you even include those in their day, or in their education or in their activities? Why would you even have them exposed to those things? So, and then have you proven this wrong? So, they are thinking just because it's not causing them to be criminals that it's okay. That's surely not the case. So that's how you take a counterclaim. You take the other side's argument and tell me why that's wrong. And then the last is a conclusion. You're going to restate your claim in different language, which means different wording. I've had multiple kids be like, well, what language do you want me to put it in? No, 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 no. I just mean different words. So you're not going to say, remember, your thesis statement is something along the lines of, violent video games are not harmful to teens because of blank, blank, and blank. You want to repeat that, but you want to phrase it differently. With a transition, so you could say, like, in conclusion, one can see that violent video games are harmless to children, and then like repeat kind of some of your reasoning and your phrasing without just listing word for word what your thesis statement was. Paint a picture of the world depicting what would happen if your argument is or is not implemented. So if you're arguing that teens should be allowed to play violent video games, you're going to you could talk about, like, if people ban violent video games, how that would be a loss of entertainment and a loss of, competitiveness within and teamwork within friends, things like that. Or you could say, if you are arguing against violent video games, you could talk about how it would be good for kids to remove this out of their life as an option. Just really just kind of paint a picture of, like, why you're right, and that either teens should be allowed to play or they shouldn't. And if we don't do something fast, you kind of want to push the reader into an action. Leave the reader with something to think about, connect to an issue in their lives in some way, suggest a further way of thinking. So a lot of times, if you're writing about whether or not teens should be playing violent video games, your audience would be parents, right? So you can kind of read them, be teenagers and parents. Leave suggestions, connect to their lives in some sort of way. So, like, obviously, if they were reading this, they probably play violent video games or have children that play violent video games. So you want to kind of suggest a further way of thinking or an action. So maybe if you're addressing kids, teens should, be aware of what they're taking in and what they're allowing, the influences they're allowing into their brains. Maybe you want to say that parents should, limit screen time, or maybe parents need to play the game before they allow their teenagers or their kids to do it. So you're just going to kind of give some ideas on what society or parents or kids need to do to handle this situation better. It's never okay to make an argument without suggesting an action. So you don't want to just complain about something, or say that something's bad, or say that something's good, without either promoting it or suggesting that we get rid of it. So that's the whole point of argument research, is that then you suggest a further way of thinking about something or a further way of acting in the future. So I hope this helps. Again, there's 4 sections. There's the introduction, that's paragraph 1, the development of your argument, paragraphs 2 through 4, the counterclaim, which is paragraph 5, and then the conclusion, which is paragraph 6. everywhere that there's a dash, that means you need to be writing underneath of it. There's only a couple of places that I said that you could have bullet points. Otherwise, I need you to actually